Today, we are creating this awesome reel with a SaaS-style animation, and we are building the whole thing right here in Premiere Pro. Let's get into it without wasting any time. I've already imported my music into the project. If you want to use the exact same track, I've added the download link in the description. Go check it out. First thing, we need our background. For the color, just pick anything for now. It doesn't matter what color you choose here because we're immediately going to override it with a gradient effect. Add the color matte to your timeline. Now, go to Effects and search for 4-Color Gradient. Drag and drop it onto your color matte layer. In Effect Controls, I set up the 4 colors like this. The first color is pure white, the second color is a light orange, the third color is the same light orange, and the fourth color is pure white again. This gives us a really clean, warm, minimal background that has depth without being distracting. Now I add the grid image on top of the color matte layer. You can download this grid image from the description. I've added the link there. I decrease the opacity of the grid to around 10%. We just want a very faint, subtle grid texture visible in the background. Barely there, but when you look closely, it adds a nice technical, polished feeling to the design. Now I select the text tool and type my first text. I changed the font to SF Pro Display Bold and made it a dark black color. Make sure you center align the text. Now, notice the dot at the end of Hi. I select just that dot and change its color to orange. This small orange dot creates a brand-consistent detail that ties into the orange in our background gradient. It feels intentional and designed. I duplicate the text layer and type my second text. I am Nick. Same font, same size, same treatment. And the same thing, I add the orange dot at the end of I am Nick as well. This keeps the animation language consistent. Every sentence ends with the same orange dot signature. Time to animate. I select the first text layer, go to Effects, and search for Transform. Drag and drop the transform effect onto the first text layer. In Effect Controls, first thing, increase the shutter angle to 180 degrees. This gives us motion blur on any movement. Now, I turn on the position keyframe. At the first keyframe, I move the text slightly downward from its final position. At the second keyframe, the text is in its natural original position. The text slides up from below into place. I also turn on the opacity keyframe. First keyframe is 0% opacity, second keyframe is 100%. So the text fades in as it slides up. I select the last position keyframe, right-click, choose Ease In, then open the graph editor and adjust the curve so the animation starts fast and slows down as it arrives. And if you want the complete project file exactly as I built it, just join the YouTube membership. You'll get the full project file and you can open it up, study it, and start posting right away. The link is in the description. If you're already a member, thank you so much. Everything is uploaded in the post section of my channel. Go grab it. I adjust the keyframe timing to sync with the music beat. Always sync your animations to the music. It makes everything feel intentional. Now I add a second transform effect to the same text layer. Yes, 2 transform effects on the same layer. In this second transform effect, I increase the shutter angle to 180 degrees again. Then I turn on the position keyframe and create a slight right to left slide animation. So, as the text exits, it moves subtly to the left while fading out. This way, when the next text enters from the bottom, the directional movement of both texts is harmonized. Everything feels like it's moving in the same flow. I also turn on the opacity keyframe in this second transform effect and set the opacity to fade out at the end. So the first word gently fades away as it slides left. Clean exit. This is a really important principle in animation. Smooth transitions between elements. Don't just have things appear and disappear. Always think about how one element's exit can connect smoothly to the next element's entrance. Now I need each word on its own separate layer so I can animate them individually. I duplicate the text layers and delete each word from each layer. So the first layer has only the first word, the second layer has only the second word, and so on. Now I add a transform effect to the first word. Same setup, shutter angle 180 degrees, position keyframe for the slide up animation, opacity keyframe for the fade in, adjust the graph for the smooth deceleration at the end. I stagger the layer timing so as the high word disappears, the first word of the next text becomes visible at the same time. The transition between the two is seamless when it looks like a continuous flow, not separate isolated animations. Until I'm happy with the first word's animation, I copy the transform effect and paste it onto the second word layer. Both words now animate in with the same smooth motion. Now, here's a really cool detail. When the high text comes up, you can see a little orange version of the same word, following it like a shadow, slightly offset below. It's the same word but in orange, creating a color echo effect. Very satisfying and unique. Let me show you how to make it. Simply duplicate the high text layer. Take the duplicate and move it 1 or 2 frames backward in the timeline, so it plays very slightly behind the original. Then change the text color of this duplicate layer to orange, the same orange as our dot color. Now, when the text animates up, the orange version follows just behind it like a shadow chasing the main text. One important thing, we don't want this orange follow effect to stay visible throughout the whole animation. We only need it during the bottom to top reveal, so once the bottom to top animation is finished, I cut the orange layer and delete the rest. Then I turn on the opacity keyframe on the orange layer and fade it out at the end of the animation, so it disappears cleanly rather than cutting off suddenly. Now we're building the big, dramatic orange circle that drops from the top of the screen, grows to fill the entire frame, and transitions us into the next section. This is one of the signature moments of the whole reel, really satisfying to watch. I select the ellipse tool and draw a circle on the canvas. Now in Properties, I set both the width and the height exactly to 1080 pixels, making it a perfect circle. I center align it to the composition. Then I change the fill color to the same orange we've been using throughout the reel. Consistency is everything. I add the transform effect to the circle layer. First thing, increase the shutter angle all the way to 360 degrees. Maximum motion blur. When this circle drops at speed, we want it to have a beautiful motion blur trail. I set the initial scale width to just 5%. The circle starts tiny, almost invisible at the top of the screen. Then I turn on the position keyframe. At the first keyframe, the circle is positioned at the top of the screen, above the visible area. I move forward a few frames and add a second keyframe with the circle in the center of the screen. It is dropped from the top to the middle. I select both keyframes and set them to ease in and ease out. So the circle starts slow, accelerates through the middle, and decelerates as it arrives. Smooth drop. And the circle is roughly halfway through its drop. Right in the middle of the two position keyframes, I turn on the scale keyframe. At this midpoint, the circle is at its small size. I move a few frames forward and increase the scale to 200%. The circle explodes outward to completely fill the entire composition. I select the first scale keyframe and choose ease out, so the scale up starts slow and then accelerates fast. The graph curve for this looks like it starts flat and then shoots upward steeply. The result, the circle drops in, then suddenly explodes to fill the screen. It looks amazing. Pay close attention to the keyframes here and watch the screen carefully. The position drop and the scale explosion overlap in timing, and getting that overlap right is what makes the transition feel powerful. Once the orange circle fills the screen, we now have an orange background. I copy and paste the grid image layer to sit on top of the circle layer. Then I add an opacity keyframe to the grid. When the circle fills the whole background, I fade in the grid image so it becomes visible. The The grid sits on top of the orange and gives the same subtle texture we had on the white background, keeping the design language consistent across the transition. Now I copy the text layer from the previous section and type my new text, "You." I change the color from black to white since we're now on an orange background. I center align it and increase the size. Make it big and bold, filling the frame with presence. I add the transform effect and turn on both the scale keyframe and the opacity keyframe. At the first keyframe, opacity is 0 and scale is slightly larger than final. A few frames forward and opacity is 100%, and scale is back to normal. So the word "you" appears with a subtle scale down reveal. It pops in slightly large and settles to its final size. I adjust the graph for smooth deceleration at the end. Then I also turn on the position keyframe in the same transform effect and create a left to right slide. The word "you" slides from slightly left into its centered final position. And at the end, I add a fade out keyframe so the word slides off screen downward as it exits. Now here's one of the most clever animation techniques in this entire reel. I need to show 3 different phrases one after another: creative editor, creative partner, and creative friend, where the word creative stays in exactly the same position on screen each time, and only the second word changes. First, I copy the text layer and type creative editor. Then I copy it again and type creative partner. Then once more for creative friend. Now I need to make sure the word creative is in the exact same position across all 3 layers. Here's how I align them. I take the second text layer and temporarily place it above the first in the timeline so I can see both at the same time. I then adjust the position of the second layer until the word creative lines up perfectly with the creative in the first layer. Same X and Y position, pixel perfect. I do the same with the third layer. Then I put all layers back into their proper order in the timeline. You'll understand why this matters in a moment when we see the animation play out. Now I add a transform effect to the first creative. I turn on the position keyframe and create a left to right reveal. The text slides in from the left, same direction as the "you" word before it. This creates continuity and everything in this section moves left to right. It feels cohesive. I also turn on the scale keyframe. First keyframe has the scale at 110%, which positions the text slightly higher than its final spot. A few frames forward, the scale is back to 100%. This creates a very subtle downward settle. The text appears and gently settles into its final position. I adjust the graph so the animation starts slow and ends fast. A gentle ease in that snaps to the final position. Once I'm happy with all the keyframes, I select all 3 creative text layers, right-click, and nest them together. I turn on the scale keyframe. I move a few frames forward and decrease the scale slightly. So, as the beat approaches, the whole scene subtly shrinks down. I right-click the last keyframe and choose Ease In. Then open the graph editor and create a curve where the animation starts fast and ends slow, smooth as butter. The whole composition gently pulls back just before the big reveal. Now we're setting up the moment just before the beat drops and the logo reveals. The text needs to exit in a really dramatic way. It squeezes horizontally until it disappears. I go into the nested layer and select the last text layer. In Effect Controls, I find the scale setting and uncheck the Uniform Scale checkbox. This allows me to change the width and height of the scale independently. I can make the text narrower without making it shorter. Now I turn on the Scale Width keyframe. The first keyframe has the scale width at its normal 100% value. I move a few frames forward and set the scale width to 0%. The text horizontally squeezes down to nothing, like it's being crushed from both sides until it disappears. The text starts squeezing slowly, then accelerates and snaps shut. Also at this point, and when the beat drops, I delete the orange circle layer from the timeline. We no longer need it. When the beat hits, the background switches back to the clean, 4-color gradient, white-orange background that we created at the very beginning. When the beat drops, the logo flips into view with a satisfying 3D flip animation, clean, dramatic, and perfectly timed to the music. For this tutorial, I'm using a circle as a placeholder instead of a real logo. But the process is completely identical. You just replace the circle with your own logo file. So if you need the full project file where you can swap in your logo immediately, join the membership and it's there ready to go. I add the circle, or your logo, to the timeline at the beat drop point. I add the basic 3D effect to the logo layer. In Effect Controls, I turn on the swivel keyframe. This controls the horizontal flip, like a card turning over. At the first keyframe, the swivel value is minus 90 degrees. This means the logo is fully sideways, completely invisible like a card showing you its edge. At the second keyframe, the swivel value is 0, the default position. The logo is now facing us straight on, fully visible. So the animation goes from minus 90 degrees to 0 degrees. The logo flips from invisible on its side to fully facing you. Like a coin flip, but smooth and intentional. Please subscribe and share this with your editor friends. It genuinely helps the channel grow and allows me to keep making tutorials like this one. And one last thing, the full project file is available for YouTube members. Everything is already built and ready. You can swap in your own logo, change the text, and post it right away. Join the membership. The link is on screen and in the description. Members, the file is already in the post section waiting for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.